Hello and welcome to another S'more RV Fun Review. Today we're going to be talking about generators that can power your camper. So what we have here is the Champion Power Equipment Digital Hybrid Open Frame Inverter Generator. What I like about this generator right off the bat is the fact that I have two sources for fuel. I got my gas tank up top, and then I also have the option to switch between propane. So you can only use one at a time. But for us, having a generator that we know we can tank if we're going to be boondocking or somewhere we don't have the 30 amp power that we need, this generator will actually power this entire camper, no problem. And I'm talking about running my refrigerators. I have a little one in the back, the one inside, and getting our air conditioning going all at the same time while running the microwave. So just right off the bat, some of the stats about this is when you're running it on gasoline power, you're gonna get 4,000 starting watts. So your cranking watts to get going are gonna be 4,000, and then you're gonna be running at 3,500 watts of power out of this generator. So if you are running even more, basically what you wanna consider is how you are adding up your watts. So when your refrigerators are running, there's a certain amount of wattage that they're taking. So when you're looking at generators, you wanna kind of do a little bit of calculation ahead of time to know how many watts you might be running all at once and what that means to the type of generator you're gonna need. So having 3,500 watts ability off of gas is very important for us because we know that we can run the generator. Ideally though, we don't wanna have to bring gas with us every time we go somewhere. So we might fill this tank up, but generally speaking, we're gonna be using our propane tanks to actually power this. And when you're looking at your propane tanks, because that's generally what we would be using to run the fuel off of this, that's 3,600 starting watts and then 3,150 of running watts. So it's a little bit less than the gas power, but you're still getting enough watts, I think, in my opinion, to run everything that we need inside of this. A few other numbers is when you get this powered up, you're running 120 volts. Its frequency is 60 hertz, and the noise level is 64 decibels. So when it comes to noise, obviously when you're at a campground, you don't want to be the noisy camper. So having a generator that's actually a little bit quiet is also essential. And that's another reason that we really like this, is because it has quiet technology. This is 50% quieter, they say, than their previous generators. And once you get it starting, and you'll see this, it is really quiet. And it also has an eco button here. So when you're running this, you can press this eco button on, and what it does is it actually revs the engine down when it's not having as much draw. So when you're not powering as much as you need, it quiets the engine down even more, and then as you start to pull more energy out of it, it'll actually ramp itself back up. By doing that, you're also saving the amount of fuel that you're using all at once. Rather than just having it cranked up all the time, you can use that eco button and still run your camper depending on what you need. When we're looking at runtime, when you're running off of the gas, the 2.9 gallons of gas that you have in here, you get 17 hours of actual runtime just with those 2.9. So if you have a bigger gallon tank that you could bring along, you can essentially run this thing your entire camping trip, depending on how long you're staying. And that 17 hours is gonna give you quite a bit. Now, if you switch it over to propane, you get 18 hours worth of runtime. So between the two, if you have a full propane tank and then you have your full gas, you're getting over a day and a half worth of energy out of this just by running it off of the tank and the gas in that single setting. So you're gonna have to switch between the two because it doesn't run all of them at once. But that's an important consideration to keep in mind when you're looking at generators, is how long can I run this if I were to fill it and then go inside and kind of do something. That way you're not constantly checking your gas levels and making sure that you have enough fuel to actually run the camper. And when you buy this out of the box, they give you a funnel, but they do not give you the oil. So you're gonna have to pick up some 10W30 oil. I already did that, I've already filled this, but every time you go to use this, you're gonna wanna make sure you check your oil levels, because the last thing you wanna do is run this and have the oil go out. That's very bad for the engine. It'll end up being very bad for your entire camping experience. So always make sure you have extra oil on hand. 10W30, it's not very expensive at all. Just keep the maintenance part of your generator up. So let's go ahead and take a look at all the controls we have on here. So here we're gonna do an overview of the control panel. We're just go left to right. The first thing we wanna look at is our choke, and there's three notes about the choke. The first is pushed in all the way is running. Pulled halfway out is where you're gonna choke if you're running on propane, and then pulled all the way out is where you're gonna actually choke it to run gas. So you have three settings there, and there is a little stop along the way where it'll rest in a groove. But once you get this going, you push it in to run it. So that's the choke. Here we have our fuel selection type. So when it's down like this, you can see there's a little metal button here that gets pushed in. So when it's down, we can run our propane. We just plug our quick connect in there. If we want to run gas, we just flip this over. It pushes in that metal button, and now we're running on the gas. Here's your on-off button, and a note about the on-off button, which you'll see later, is that when we're running propane, you have to have this button on to run it, but when you hit it to off, it does not actually shut off the generator on propane. That switch will only work when you're running gas. So little note about the on-off button. Our eco button is again what was used to actually quiet down the generator even more, but put it on economic running so it uses less energy if you're not pulling it. When you're starting this and when you're running it, I always have this turned off. So the eco is not on. I will make reference to using the eco button, but just make the note that I always keep it on off, and if I want to switch it, I switch it after the generator is running, and you can tell it actually does quiet it down. Down here we have our 12 volt DC 8 amp automotive plug. Many of us call that the cigarette lighter, but that's your 12 volt plug there. Here's your spot to ground this to the ground. So if you wanted to make this grounded, you can use this little area. You're gonna wanna talk to an electrician about that unless you know what you're doing. I'm not even getting into that part, but that's just where you would do your grounding. Here are your indicator lights. So the top green light is your okay light. So if everything's running operationally good, this green light's on. If there's an issue or it's overloaded and there's too much being pulled or drawn from it, this red light will go on and it'll actually stop it. The bottom light here is your oil indicator light. So when you get low on oil, that'll come on. But as I said, you always want to check your oil before any time you run this. Here is your Paralink, and if you're actually running this with another generator, this is where you would make that connection. That is a sold separately kit to do the Paralink together. And then this is one of the features that I like, and when I get into starting this, I show how this actually does not work with the surge protector because of an open ground. But the ability to know that there's a breaker inside of here, so if it does get overloaded, these are gonna break and this becomes a little push button there to reset it. Having those in there is just an added kind of security for your overloading and energy pulls. And I like having that. I also have the breakers inside of the camper, but just knowing that this is here is a whole nother reason why I'm okay not using the surge protector when I'm plugged in. This right here is our 120 volt AC 30 amp. It also has a single phase 60 hertz electrical load that comes out of it. And then that's gonna be your main hookup for your RV, obviously. And then right here are two 120 volt, 20 amp plugs. Again with the 60 hertz electrical load single phase, but those are nice to have as well. So if you're running this and you need to maybe just run from here, or maybe a combination of both, again, if you're not pulling the total amount of wattage out, you're able to do that. So that is an overview of our control panel right there. Here is a look at the left side of the generator, and here you can see it's just overviewing what you have: 4,000 starting watts, 3,500 running on fuel or on gas, 3,600 starting watts, 3,150 running watts on propane. And then what I like, and it's the little things for me always, is they have this sticker on how to operate. So whenever you're starting your generator, it's always good to just kind of run yourself through your process and your procedures. Here, it's check your oil, make sure your fuel types are in and on, make sure you have your switch over, you're turned on, you pull your choke, you start it, push your choke in, then you plug in. The thing that you're gonna wanna make sure is anytime you run the generator like this, you wanna let it get up to power first. So I like to wait about 2 to 4 minutes before I start plugging anything into this while I'm running it. And then it's also telling you that before you shut down, make sure you unplug everything. So I do the same process. When I'm done using this, if the power didn't just run out on its own, I will unplug everything and then let it run a little bit and then shut down. So that's just the kind of the key there that you have. And then just make sure you close up your fuel and you switch everything back. So here's the back view of the generator. Here's our exhaust. This whole area gets hot. So you wanna make sure that when you're running this, you keep this away from your camper, away from things that are flammable. And you always wanna run this generator in an open air environment. You don't wanna run it in a garage or anything closed off, always in open air. Here's where we have our air filter, and this is just a quick release here. And then this bottom part pulls off. I'm not gonna pull the whole thing off, but inside here we have our little foam air filter. So you're always gonna wanna make sure after you run this a little bit that you're checking that air filter or replacing it to make sure that it is nice and clean. Everything here, you can see I have this ground wire, but again, we're gonna talk about the fact that the ground wire here does not stop the surge protectors from saying that there's an open ground. There's still an open ground error you're gonna get on your surge protector. And this is just a look at the right side view as well. Again, these parts over here get hot. Want to make sure you keep those away from everything. So when you get this generator, a couple of other things that come out of the box here is your automotive plug. So here you have your 120 volt plug. That goes in here. This is a battery charger. Other things that come in the box, you have this little adapter. I am assuming, we're not using this piece, but I'm assuming that this is used to actually hold your cord. And then you get this also automotive plug that has two 2.4 amp USB plugs here. So this is also just a nice little thing to have. I'm all about getting free little things, but this comes with the generator as well. So that's for your USB connections. constantly looking for USB plugs when you're charging your phones or tablets or things like that. So it's nice to just have this, knowing you can plug in and then you have that power there. And then probably the most important, but I think it's the thing that you're gonna have to replace when you're using your camper, is this quick connect plug that's gonna go to your propane. So if you can see, my propane tanks are actually about 4 feet off the ground over here. So this cord, although maybe long enough, it's not gonna stretch all the way down to the ground, and I don't want this pulling, but this is just your quick connect into there. Pops right in, pop it out, you just pull back and it falls out. So this also comes in the box with it. Like I said, you're probably gonna have to get some kind of extension that goes in here if you're gonna be using your front propane tanks. Today I'm gonna be showing you just using a separate propane tank altogether, but if you have two 30 amp tanks like we do, you're gonna probably wanna use that to power your generator as you're out in the wild camping. So now I'm actually gonna show you the operation of this. So the first thing I wanted to do is I put my adapter here for my propane on. I'm gonna go ahead and plug this in. You see that snaps into place. I'm gonna open my tank up all the way. And now I'm gonna pull my choke halfway to get it going. And then again, we're gonna pull this. Now it might start on the first, but if it doesn't, you're priming it. So up to 5, it should go. If you're out of that, you might wanna just make sure you're checking over everything to make sure you got everything operational. Once we get this started, we're gonna push our choke in, and you're gonna be able to hear how quiet this generator is. I am using a cell phone for this production, so it might sound a little bit louder than normal, but I can assure you it's quiet, and you're gonna actually hear how quiet it is when we go inside of the camper. The other note I just wanna make, because I'm showing this, I have this on a table. I would recommend not putting this on a table. The generator does shake. It'll shake itself right off of this or make your propane fall. So just to start this, I'm gonna do it on here, but then I'm gonna move it to the ground when we go inside. The other thing I'm gonna do is actually plug in my surge protector, and you're gonna be able to see the error that it's giving me when I do that. So we're gonna do all of that right now. So we're on, eco, chokes half. We're gonna go ahead and pull it. If I hit this eco button, you'll hear it actually turn itself down even more. The first thing you want to make sure that you do is actually let your generator build up power before you plug anything in. So I've done that, and then here I'm actually plugging in our surge guard surge protector, and by doing this you can see that I actually get the fault that there is an open ground. So this is just a closer look at that. It says RV fault, open ground, and it will not actually run power through there. So we do not use our surge guard while we are actually using the RV. We just plug straight in to the power here. So you can see right there, I'm plugging in, and this is how we're gonna run it because we're not worried about any kind of surge coming out of there. So here I just wanted to give you a look at what it sounds like once we actually get into the camper. So I'm gonna go in here and actually close the door and then give you a better sound. So our door is closed, and I'm in just the living area right now. You can hear how quiet it actually is, which to me is one of the main reasons. So the first thing we're gonna do is go ahead and turn on our air. We're gonna turn it on high, and it's set to Celsius, but we're gonna turn it all the way down on cool. And it'll take a second here to run up. That's actually louder, so now that we're running that, you can see you can't even hear the generator over the air. So if you are camping, you're in a spot that's remote, you're not worried about your outdoor noise or what you're doing, inside the camper when your air is running, it's gonna be louder. So here we are inside the RV. I'm actually gonna move away from the air unit, but what I have running in here is I have my air condition going. It's about 90, 95 degrees outside right now. Obviously I'm sweating. But we have the air running. I have the fridge turned to electric, and I can actually run everything else. We have a radio that powers by speakers inside. We have our TV in here. This is the 32 BHDS model. So actually in the bunk room underneath here, there's an outdoor kitchen, which has another fridge that runs on electric. That is also running. So once we plug in, everything kind of turns on. The nice thing about this generator is it's giving me that wattage that I need. Even with the 3100 running watts on the propane, if I wanted to jack that up even more, I could use the gas and get even more wattage. But just knowing that I can run everything in here without worrying about any of that is key to finding the right generator for your RV or for your travel trailer to make sure that you're powering it the right way. So check out this generator. It's amazing. As you saw, it's super quiet. We're inside here. I'm actually in the back kids room. And if you listen, and you can hear the air running, but you can't hear that generator at all, and it's at the front of the trailer. So it's very quiet, and that's probably one of the key things that I would be looking for as well, is just to make sure that we are at a campground. We wouldn't be running the generator, but if we ever needed it for some reason, we can do that. So we got this generator mainly for the travel trailer and camping, but it also would run things at my house. So if we ever had an energy issue at the house or anything like that, we have it there to run anything at home. The one thing I will say, the one thing that it's gonna be unavoidable unless you're buying a much smaller generator that doesn't have the wattage, is that this generator weighs a little bit over 100 pounds. So it is kind of heavy for maybe one person. I have no problem moving it around, but I know that if my wife needed to pick it up, we would have to have two people doing it. So if you're trying to avoid adding a ton of weight, you know, a generator is just one of those things where you're gonna have to assume you're gonna have an extra 100 pounds of weight going in your tow vehicle when you're pulling it. So it's just one of the considerations, probably the only negative thing that I found about that generator. If you're gonna consider the ground wire to be a negative, you can, but like I said, I'm not gonna use my surge protector when I'm running a generator where I know what the power coming out of it is. It's never gonna go above the 30 amps and fry everything. And in this camper itself, we also have our breaker box, and those breakers work because we've tripped every single one of them just trying to run this and get it figured out when we first got it. So, and that had nothing to do with this generator. We weren't using that. We were actually just using power at our house, and we had all kind of issues, and the breakers were getting tripped inside. So there's that extra layer of protection that I think is extremely important when you're running your camper and just making sure. So I want to thank you for watching this video. If you have any questions about this generator, down below in the description I have all the information about the generator, including links to purchase from Amazon. Those are affiliate links, so if you purchase it from there, it helps us, it helps you. We would appreciate that. If you have any questions about our generator, or anything about the specs or how we run it, any questions whatsoever, leave them down below. We will answer those, and we will help find answers if you have questions about this generator. We want to thank you for watching. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. This has been another review from S'more RV Fun. There's a lot more to come. We'll see you next time.